to the tracks just go on and on and on, and that's the point. They're there to keep you jamming forever. It's all a big conspiracy and we're behind it. Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison. It is the Monday Guitar Show. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out with apparently hugely voluminous hair and chat about the guitar. Specifically, we are embarking on another journey where we aim to take you one step further down your guitar playing road. We aim to make you a slightly better guitar player, sometimes a significantly better guitar player, by the time you finish the stream than you were when you arrived. It's great to have you on board. If you're a new viewer, hey, welcome. We do this every Monday. Make sure you hit the bell icon, subscribe icon, which is here, maybe? I don't know which direction YouTube does this stuff in. But even still, make sure you hit those icons because it really does help us bring these streams to you. Let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing as well. Also, don't forget, drop us a comment. If you are new here, say hello. We've got a lovely community that's been brewing for several years now, if you can believe that. And if you're one of our returning community, hey man, listen, it is great to have you back. It's very lonely without you. That's all I'm going to say. So thanks for coming on board today. We are continuing our discussion on fretboard visualization, which is in essence how you see things on the guitar before you play them. It allows you to do all sorts of cool things, like play over chord changes, like predict melodies and play them in real time. So essentially you get to almost like be like a chess player, if that makes sense, where you get to see many moves ahead of the move that you're currently on. And that's how this stuff works. And it's a really important skill. It's part of our big triad, our three pillars of guitar playing that are very much derived from Nick Harrison's work. If you haven't done so already, go check out the Contemporary Guitar Performance Workshop. A big shout out to our sources here. We cite our sources in this little space. Which I have paraphrased as technique, the physical act of playing the guitar, music theory and fretboard knowledge, and then repertoire and contribution, which is one of Nick's down there. It's a very cool description. Without knowing where things are on the fretboard, you can't very well play them. So today we're going to answer the question of how do you visualize, how do you see any chord, any note, any scale kind of immediately? How do you do that thing where you just know where stuff is? Now, this is a question that I get asked fairly regularly, and sometimes when I'm on my day, I can be quite good at this stuff. Occasionally, it, fails me, but that's true with every guitar player, I think. With the exception of folks like the legendary, the mighty Tom Quayle, whose lessons we are still giving away. So if you want a free guitar lesson from licklibrary.com, you want a little taster of what we do over here at Lick Library, you can click the link down below where you will find a link to a free lesson by Tom Quayle. It's part of a series that he has on fretboard visualization and on like basically learning your way around the guitar. And this is lesson 3, which is available free down below. We give you lesson 1 for free for a week on the first week. The second week we did the streams, we did lesson 2. So if you've been following on, this is going to be lesson 3. And it's available free regardless of whether you're a member. However, if you are a member, if you are a regular Lick Library subscriber, you will get this entire course as part of your membership, along with a whole bunch of others. Anyway, that's quite enough waffle from me. Let's say hello to the stream, and then we'll get on with the meat of today's session. So the first thing we're going to say is hello to Marcin, who was the first through the door as usual. Marcin is one of our longest standing viewers, a very fine guitar player. It's been really rewarding to watch Marcin's journey over the last few years as he's become better and better and better. It's very cool. It's a product of a lot of his hard work. And if we could play a small part in that, then happy with that. Sacred Godslayer's in the house. Good to see you. PJ says, oh my god, you guys are early. This is me. I put the stream up early because I had to go and do things. So I put the stream up early. A little bit of Christmas shopping, among other things. Timothy Appling is in the house. Great to see you. Response Audio is tuning in. Larry Warren is here. Says, hey guys, Merry Christmas. Please listen to my Christmas album called Larry Warren Simply Christmas. Did the album last year. Shameless plug. It's on Apple, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, etc. Well, I'm I'm going to go listen to that after this stream, and I'm going to suggest that you, dear viewer, do the same, right? Go help out a fellow streamer, go get those view counts up, but also, if I know anything about Larry's playing, it's going to be really, really great. So be sure you go check that out. Foghorn is in the house. Timothy Appling is here. It says, Merry Christmas to all, just in case we don't have the stream next week. We do have a stream next week. But may your stocking be filled with guitar gear. I'll echo that sentiment. Here's a cool one from Helmet Strap, right? A very good question. It says, is anyone expecting a new guitar or amp from Santa? I am going to open this up. I'm not expecting one from Santa, but I am expecting one from Baum Guitars, which I've been waiting for a while. They're a pre-order kind of setup, so you pre-order it, they build it, and it takes a while. But hopefully it should be landing sometime this month. I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a very cool fiddle. But I'm going to open this up to you guys. What I want to know from you is, if you are expecting something from Santa, hey, let us know. But if you're not, if you're not expecting a bit of gear from Santa, but you could wave a magic wand and you could have any piece of equipment, let's open this up. Let's say something that you could buy in a shop, right? Or you could buy online. We don't mean like the Greenie Les Paul or something, but like some kind of production piece of equipment. If there is something that is being made right now that you could have for Christmas, and it could be anything, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I am going to think quite hard about what it might be. I think it'd probably be another Maybach. But, you know, we'll figure that out. It would be the Maybach Baron that I've been waiting for forever, but the Baron doesn't even exist yet. It's still a prototype guitar. And when it is ready and it's launched upon the world, I'll be wanting one as soon as possible. That's my one. So yeah, Maybach Baron. I think I'd really like, as well, I'd really like an amp switcher. One of the two would be very cool. So I'm just going to have all these amps switched on. I don't have one yet, and I probably should have one. Maybe I should find one. Anyway, Response Audio is in the house, says dreaming about it, not sure if it'll happen. Well, you know, let's dream a little bit more. Ergo Hog is in the house, great to see you. I'll have read that's fellow guitar lizards, but fellow guitar wizards, great to have you on board. Chris Brown is in the house, lovely to see you. Chris Olson says, hello all, especially Nick and Stuart. Well, that's kind of you. Stu Shields, the man behind all the promo stuff. I will usually fly solo on these streams. Stu's not usually producing on these ones because I've done about 1 million of them, and I like to give him his Monday nights free. But Stu is always behind the scenes sending out those emails. And of course, Stu is the guy that you see when you get your one-to-ones. So big shout out to Stu Shields. Yeah, without whom these streams would not reach you. Franz is in the house. Lovely to see you. Block 18 is here. Here's a one from Sacred Godslayer. Never noticed the binding was so yellow, or maybe it's lighting. Yeah, the binding's really yellow here. You can see the contrast against the bone nut. It's probably the easiest way to see it. So the nut is quite sort of bone white, but the binding is yellow, like especially around the body. It's like a champagne kind of yellow. It's very cool. I think it's just because of the way it's aged. I think it's probably originally white, or designed to look like it was originally white and then made yellow. Steve-O Waddell says, tasty legato. I recognize that guitar. I think I know who that is. And if it is you, hey man, great to see you. Thanks for coming. Cranker Tom is in the house, says, hi Fretboard Freaks. Last week's stream showed me that my PRS needed intonation setup. That's interesting. Let me know if it's a one with saddles, individual, like a trem PRS, or if it's a stop tail, because in my experience the stop tails almost never need to be intonated. They just work. It's crazy. It's witchcraft. But the ones with saddles, for sure. Paco Jastorius is tuning in for a wet and cool Northern California. We'll be in Southern California sometime next month for the NAMM show. Looking forward to that. Andrew's tuning in from New York City. Would love to get there at some point. That'd be super cool. Great part of the world. Idle Saturday says, good grief. I mean, consume that's good. I hope so. DG5466 is in with some code, and I don't know what the code means, but hey, who knows? If you can figure it out, you're a better man than I. But listen, thanks for your comment. It's great to have you on board. Mal Riley says, happy upcoming Christmas. Nick, are you changing modes in this improv? I certainly am. It's a very good question, and I'm going to highlight that over the course of the stream. But I'm going to star that up too. PJ says, very Dream Theater. Very nice. Thanks, man. Cranker Tom says, love that backing track. Me too. Mike Seedoff is tuning in. I'm interested to see what course is attached to this topic. Well, we've got a couple of them. So I have a course called the Fretboard Freedom Master Plan, which lends itself to that one. It's a cool title. I didn't come up with the title. That was one of Kim's. titles, I think, or it might have been Stu Shields. It was one of those guys. But it's a cool course. I like it. I'm proud of it. But also we have Tom Quayle's fretboard visualization course linked to this too. So a couple of courses. Daryl Queen is back. Lovely to see you. Tony McAnally is in the house. Larry Thorpe is tuning in for the first time. Hopefully not the last time, Larry. It's great to see you. Response Audio is here. Chris Davids is here. Raphael O'Halfael is here. Dylan Jessup is here. Richard Pratt is a member. Pleased to hear it. Stratman is tuning in. Roy Calhoun is tuning in and says, Nick, can you please answer the question last week about the notes of the harmonics not on the 12th fret? Yes, I will, but I'm going to answer that in the Q&A section. So I've started. I will not forget, I promise. Anyway, we got some cool comments, right? So Sacred God Slayer says he's looking for an EVH Wolfgang special, the purple one, but I'll check discounts after Christmas. Very cool guitar, right? We do like the EVH guitars, man. I don't know what they do with those necks. The necks are just special. It's really, really good. Fog Hornish says if Santa brings me more guitar stuff, he'll be delivering divorce papers too. I've got a studio to hide my stuff in. That's all I'm going to say. Block 18 says Baum guitars are definitely worth the wait. I have a Dark Moon Wingman, amazing instrument, super cool. I have a back wing coming in gold, looking forward to it. I got myself a Vintera 2 no-caster and butterscotch. Ooh, baby, butterscotch tellies. That's the way. This is my buddy John's telly, which is living with me right now. This is a 52 Hot Rod. I'm reliably told. Very cool. Hey Response, been catching them on replay, but work is me. It happens, man. It happens. Okay, Noel Christian Tanarte says, how to use the dominant 7th? Well, we'll talk about that too. I'm thinking about, we've got some cool things here, right? I'm thinking about a Dean Zielinski gold top. Very cool. Boss pedal switcher. Got one of those down here. Can recommend. Very cool. It's ES8 down there. Super cool. Foghornish says, I wouldn't mind a Marshall lunchbox 20-watt hand wired head. Victory or similar. We like Victory. Would do. Sick of heavy heads. Check out, by the way, if you haven't done so already, just hidden down here. I hope I can find a way to show this to you. Let me just go digging. Which cameras have we got? Oh yeah, this guy. Check one of these guys out. It's not hand wired, but this is the little mini JCM 800. Now, we did a review of that a while ago. It's a very cool amp. It's been living with me for a while. It's been on a lot of studio recordings that we've done. But the little plexi that they make, and specifically the JTM 45, are outrageously good. Super cool. Steve-O, what else says? ESP EM E2 M2 Black Natural Burst. Very cool. Mal Riley's got too many guitars. Can relate. Chris Olsen would have a JCM 900. Phil Osborne's here. Cranker Tom says same here. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but there's been lots of good comments. It could be any of them. Mike Seedorf says, I would love to get better muscle memory in my fingers for Christmas. We can help with that. Marcine's been joking about getting an 8th string for a few months. Hey Santa, we'll do something about it. You'd be pretty fucking sick with an 8th string. Swearing this soon into the stream. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Whoa, there we go. That's the code. Brilliant. Genius. Genius, genius, genius. Chris Brown says the Joe Bonamassa track, isn't it? Indeed it is. We got loads of comments. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Phil Osborne says Santa's bringing him a PRS SE Custom 2408. They're great fiddles, man. They're so, so cool, right? That's going to be a dream. Chris Davis has got a Neural DSP Petrucci Archetype. That's coming to the QC quite soon. I just bought Rabia a little while ago, Archetype Rabia, because I want the fuzzes. The synth's cool, and I like that it's got basically a Super Kraken in there, but I want the fuzzes. The fuzzes I want. Couple more cool instruments coming in. Says, recently bought a JS 2480. Oh, Ibanez JS 2480. Very cool. Not so much to wish from Santa, besides becoming a better player. Well, you know, we can hopefully help with that. So, very cool comments. Lots of very cool instruments that you guys are talking about. Let's get into the meat of today's stream, though, because we didn't come here just to fantasize about guitars, although, let's be honest, we kind of did. Oh, by the way, it's definitely Christmas because the decorations are out, right? And we have a name for this guy. If you guys remember, we had Princeton, the Vibro Chimp, when I used to do the Chimp cushion over there. Well, this little fella over here also has a name, and his name is Bert Weenie. Points if anybody knows where that's from. Of course, the Turbo Man dollar's out because Jingle All the Way is my favorite Christmas movie. Anyway, so let's get into the meat of today's stream. How do we visualize any chord, any scale on the guitar's fretboard? Well, it comes in two pieces, and funnily enough, this is where the code that we mentioned earlier on comes in, somewhat. So the way we visualize things on the guitar is somewhat different to the way other instruments visualize their own equivalent of the fretboard. They visualize their own instrument. We tend to think, as guitar players, in terms of root note and formula. I'm going to go to these two cameras and show you what I'm talking about. So the example we used last week, and we've used this several times over, is if we were to take an A minor pentatonic scale, right? A minor pentatonic, we all know an A minor pentatonic. I hope we do at this point. I'm getting very tangled in cables. This is quite annoying. I've made myself a little rat's nest down here. My foot's getting caught, but that's okay. I'll figure that out. So finger number 1 is going to go on fret number 5 on our low E string. That's our A. And then we tend to think about this. Big, little, 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 big, big. That's the way we think about this first box. Of the A minor pentatonic scale. We think about it as essentially root note and shape. Except it's not shape that we're thinking about, it's formula. And the shape is just a convenient way of finding said formula. Now, what is the formula for our minor pentatonic scale? We know this. Let me know in the comments if you do. But the formula is as follows. Root note, whatever that is, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. Root note, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. Root note, flat third. It repeats on forever. Root note, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. What on earth do they mean? We're getting to that, but this is the important bit. And let's say, for example, we're playing this, and at some point we were compelled to switch to B flat minor pentatonic. At no point would we need to think, hey, wait a minute, is this note a C sharp or a D flat? What's it from? Well, it's a flat third of B something, so it must be a D flat. We don't think in those terms. We think there's B flat. Here's our shape, right? Here is our formula. So we think about taking a root note and hanging a formula on top of this. The same is true if we play chords. If we play, for example, this very pretty sounding B flat minor 11. Let me show you what's going on there. B flat minor 11 in this case, it's 6, miss 1, 6, 6, 4, 4. But what it really is root, flat 7, flat third, fourth or 11, and then flat 7. If we had to move this, for example, from here and creep it all the way up to, say, a D minor 11, we would not need to adjust this chord shape at any point. Because of the nature of the guitar being a grid, we can take a root note, we can hang a shape on the root note to give us access to the intervals we need to make the sound that we're trying to produce. So this is the order this stuff happens in. We think of the thing we're wanting to play, we conceptualize the thing we're trying to play, then we find a shape that contains those intervals. A shape that contains the intervals that produce the sound that we want. Then once we have said shape, we then take that shape and we hang it. Oh, my light's gone down. I think I like that better. Anyway, we hang that shape on whatever the root note we're trying to play is. So if my root note is here, it's A, I take that A, I hang the shape I'm looking for on that root note, and there we go. Now this goes a little deeper because one of the best things about the guitar is that the intervals are always the same distance away from a root note. If we take this, for example, right? If we take this right here, that's our B flat minor pentatonic, right? This is our B flat. There's a flat third. This flat third is always 3 frets higher than the root note on the same given string. This doesn't change if we're playing B minor pentatonic. It's always root and flat third. That shape will always yield root and flat third. Why is that? Well, a flat third is always 3 semitones higher than a root note. And each fret accounts for a semitone. So whichever fret we're on, if we go 3 frets up, lo and behold, flat third. Always. every time, without fail. And this is a beautiful thing, because what it means is that our intervals are in predictable places. So for example, if we went looking for this E note on our B string, the flat third will always be the same predictable distance away from this E. There's our E. The flat third, 3 frets up. 1, 2, 3. There it is, always in the same place. Let's pick another note. Let's pick C. High E string. There's C. 3 frets up. It's always going to be the flat third every single time, because that distance, 3 frets up on a single string, assuming the first note is the root, will always be a flat third. It can never be anything else. Now, this also gives us predictive power to find other intervals. If that's a flat third, we could easily find a non-flat third by moving a little further up, 1 fret in fact, where we'll find ourselves a major third, or a raised third, if you want to call it that. Flat third, sometimes just called a third. That's always 4 frets away. Now, this is true with every interval on the guitar's neck, every single one of them. So let's take a quick peek at our minor pentatonic scale. We'll do it back in the key of A, and we'll find all the intervals that we need to make this work. I'm just going to sit a little better because this guitar is getting cut off very slightly on the bottom of this camera, and we don't want that. So, there's my A note. My flat third is always here. We established the next 2 notes are 4th and 5th, because they're the notes that are contained in our minor pentatonic. Root, flat third, 4th, 5th. Well, already we could tell that this note was going to be a 5th, because here's our root note, there's our 5th. Would you look at that? It's a power chord. And power chords, we already know, are root and 5th. So on and so forth. So we can now infer that a 5th will always be found 2 frets up on the next string. Easy, piece of cake. We know where that is. Now we know where a flat third is, we know where a 5th is. We could now construct an arpeggio. Root, flat third, 5th. We could move it to another A note. We could move it to this A note. First of all, how do we know that's an A note? Well, we did that in our fretboard visualization session last week, where we talked about finding notes on the fretboard. We know that 7 frets up on the next string from an open string. If you play this note, you go up 7 frets to the next string, you'll get the same note, only up an octave. We could also visualize it as 1 octave away from this A right here. So there's an A. Well, we had this shape. Root, flat third, 5th. Now we have this A here. Root, flat third, 5th. We could go to this A. Now hold on a second. That's not the octave shape. Well, it is, because we have to compensate for our B string. We discussed this in last week's stream, but when we get to the B string, when we cross from G to B, or we cross that G-B string Rubicon, there we have to go down, or rather up 1 fret. So there's our next A. We could also figure this A out as being 2 frets below the 12th fret on the B string. So now we have this. Root, flat third, 5th, root, flat third, 5th, root, flat third, 5th. We've just found an arpeggio. That's pretty cool. What if we wanted to turn this arpeggio into a major arpeggio? Well, we could do this. Root, flat third, root, major third. Does the 5th change? No. In our major arpeggio, root, third, 5th. Root, third, 5th, root, third, 5th, root, third, 5th. Piece of cake. Richard Pratt saying B string, aka stupid string. Yeah, you know, it's like it's such a trade-off, because the B string allows us to play like stuff like Running with the Devil, which ironically we need to retune the B string for, and we can play like All Right Now. So much great guitar vocabulary because of that B string, but it does make this stuff, anything a bit more beyond that, it makes it a little bit more of a hurdle. So there is this like sticking point with a lot of people's guitar learning where fretboard visualization becomes an issue because of the B string. So I agree, but for me, I think it's worth the trade-off to be able to go. It's also really good for slide because it gives us an interval of a third. Daryl Queen says, unless you are Tom Quayle, who has true quartal tuning. Interestingly, Tom has said quite publicly, and he's also said to me in private, that if he had to start again, he wouldn't bother with fourths tuning. He would just tune standard. He says the trade-offs are not worth the benefits. It's interesting, but he's just done it for so long that it's the way it is. Alex Hutchings is another guy who uses fourths tuning very effectively and is a great player. So, you know, definitely something to it. Anyway, what have we got so far? So now we've developed an ability to take a root note and hang a construct on that root note, which gives us this arpeggio. Now that is useful. That's a useful thing, but we're not here just to visualize arpeggios. We're also here to visualize scales and chords. Daryl Queen says, didn't know he regretted that. I don't think he regrets it. I think that's probably too strong of a word. I think it's more that if you were asked by a new player, hey, should I play in fourths or should I play in standard tuning? He would advise them to play in standard. And if he was talking to a younger Tom who'd never played guitar before, he would go, just play in standard, bro. But I don't think he regrets it because it's enabled him to do the Tom thing, which is, let's be honest, it's pretty freaking cool. So, you know, like that's a trade-off worth making in my opinion, but from his perspective, for the overwhelming majority of players, it's not worth it, which is why he doesn't really talk about it. So anyway, so if it was a big secret, he'd be like, look, play in fourths and you'll be able to play like me. Tom's far too honest for that, right? He's not a deceitful guy, some crazy marketing guru or something, with his method for mastery. Anyway, we're not talking about that. So we've got our arpeggio, right? Let's go a little further with this. We'll get a bit more in depth because we've just talked about this idea of roots, thirds, and fifths as an arpeggio, but how do we turn this into a chord? Well, the way we turn it into a chord is as follows. We find root notes. There's one. There's one. There's one. We find convenient places to place these notes that we can play. Now, the reason we don't visualize our A major chord as this is because who's reaching that? Awful, terrible. And then here, good God. I mean, I've pulled it out of tune just trying. Disgusting. So we don't visualize chords that way because it's obnoxious and it's unsettling and we can't reach it. So instead, we limit ourselves to the positions that we can reach within one hand's worth of span. And this is where visualization across multiple root notes becomes useful. So when we're visualizing arpeggios or small scale chunks, we can take a single root note and visualize out from there. But with a chord, we can visualize many root notes. And this gives us the capacity to start making chords, building chords on the hoof. Ergo Hog says, John Petrucci will be reaching that. Right, listen, I've shook John Petrucci's hand and my fingers are definitely longer than his. But it obviously hasn't translated into being a better guitar player than him, that's for sure. That is definitely true. But like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But then again, he's pretty athletic, so he's got quite the span on him. As I found out when I did that Dream Theater tech session, man, there was some shapes in there. Let me tell you. So anyway, if we were to take a minor chord of some description. Let's talk about building a minor chord off this A. Now, let's start by defining a formula that we're going to build. A formula for our hypothetical chord. So we know that we're going to build it from A, and we know it's going to be a minor something. So it's going to contain root flat third, and fifth at the minimum. But we also need to include some other notes. Some other notes that are going to embellish our chord in the way that we want to do. So let's say, for example, we wanted to build an A minor 11 chord. Now, I already showed you how to do this, but I'll show you a process for building this as we go further. So what are the notes that we contain in A minor 11? Well, the notes in A minor 11 are as follows. We have root, flat third, fourth, fifth, and flat 7. That's the minor pentatonic. I'll say that again. Root, flat third, 4th, aka 11, 5th, and flat 7. It's minor pentatonic. We can sometimes include a 9, which is the same as the 2, if we so desire. So let's go looking for those, right? Let's start by looking for places where we could play our root notes, our fourths, our root notes, our flat thirds, and our fifths. So where do we find those? Well, we find them in the minor pentatonic scale, right? We know where that is. That's a good frame of reference. So there's a root note, there's a root note, there's a root note, there's minor pentatonic, there's flat third, we already know that, there's fourth, we might save that for later, there's fifth. Cool. Root, flat third, fifth, well I can't play those all at once. So maybe I'll park the flat third and move it somewhere else. Root, flat third, we'll come back to you. Fourth, fifth, I might keep that one. Flat 7, root. Okay, root, fifth, root. That works, there's a power chord. There's my root. What's flat 3? Well, flat 3 is here. 1, 2, 3. Root, flat third. So I could play this. Root, fifth, root, flat third. Is this looking familiar to you? It should. We've just made an E-shaped bar chord. What about the next two notes? Well, there is a fifth. There is a root. Root, fifth, root, flat third, fifth, root. Our minor bar chord. Hooray! But we don't want a minor bar chord, we want a minor 11. So let's start by finding a convenient place that we could put a 7. Well, there's two places. There's our flat 7, we could play it here. How do I know that's a flat 7? Well, first of all, a flat 7 can be found 2 frets below a root note. But we could also find it by counting up a pentatonic scale. Root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. So we could also, under these circumstances, say that a flat 7 can be found 2 strings down from a root note on the same fret. That's another way of visualizing it. So with that in mind, we could take this root note and visualize a flat 7, 2 strings down on the same fret, but hold on, we've got a B string. So we can find it here. That could be our flat 7, that could be our flat 7. Which one do we want? Well, 2 questions. First question, which one can we reach? We can reach both of them. We could reach this one. Which one do we like the sound of? Well, this is where voicing comes in. We get to choose. We get to go, hey look, I'll put this flat 7 in. That's a bit sparkly. Maybe I'll put this flat 7 in instead. Well, that sounds a bit more subtle. What if I ever put them both in? Expensive. Nice. What have I done there? Well, I've taken my minor chord. We've put in a flat 7. We've put in another flat 7. Where we put them? Well, that's up to us. What if we want to go further with this? Well, we could also then go, okay, well, we want an 11 as well. So I want to put a 4th in there. Well, let's think about places we could put a 4th. So there's root, flat third, 4th, aha, 4th, that's good. 5th, I could play it here, but now it starts to sound a bit disastrous. Gross. Root, 4th, flat 7, 3rd, 5th, root, bit gross. It counts, but not necessarily right. I've got a great question from Peter Harper, and I'm going to answer this question as we go further. It's a very cool question, and we'll get on this, right? We'll get on this. But yes, in essence, the answer is yes. But we'll get to that. In essence, yes, but I'll get to that a bit further. So now I could play my 4th there, but it sounds disgusting, so I'm going to miss that off. So now we've got this root, 5th, flat 7, flat 3rd. Well, I could play my 4th here as well, couldn't I? That's quite pretty. Root, flat 3rd. Sorry, root, 5th, flat 7, 4th, 5th, root. Well, hold on. Now I don't have a 3rd anymore. Does it matter? Well, actually, probably not, because that still has the desired sonic effect, and it works, right? It works. But if we wanted to, we could park another root note, another 3rd, heavens, another 3rd up here on the high E string. Why there? Because, well, look, there's root, and there's a flat 3rd. So we can get this. Very sonorous, very interesting sounding voicing. could also do this, where I bar with my fourth finger, because we already established that's where a flat 7 lives. So I could play this, root, 5th, flat 7 if I wanted to, 4th, flat 7, 5th on top, flat 3rd on top. That's quite a cumbersome voicing. That's difficult to play. So here's what I can do. I can start getting rid of notes. And when we're playing chords, we already know that one of the notes we can get rid of at our leisure is the 5th. We can just bin it, right? The 5th, it's cool, but like, do we need it? Not really. Let me play this chord with and without the 5th, and we'll see if we notice the difference, right? Apart from on the amount of strain on my face. So if I go like this, that's got a 5th in. This is without the 5th. Do we notice the difference? Not a huge amount. It's a little thicker on the bottom, but does it make a huge difference to the tonality of the chord? Not really. So we could bin off our 5th, and now we've got something hideous like this. Also disgusting. And this breaches one of our rules, which is, can we reach the thing? Can we reach it? If we can't reach it, what's the point? We can't play the thing. So here's what we do. We go root. Okay, I need this flat 7, I like that. I could play my 3rd here, but now I need so much to play my 4th or my 11, so I have been playing it here. Could I position this on the previous string? Yes. I can go down 4 frets because it's B string. I could also visualize this relative to this root. Here's my root note. The 4th will always be here. 2 frets back on a previous string. How do I know that? Well, there's root, flat 3rd, 4th, keep that in mind, 5th, flat 7, root. There's root, there's 4th. So root, 2 frets back in the previous string, 4th. There's my root, 2 frets back in the previous string, 4th. Root, flat 7, 3rd, 4th or 11, that's fret 3. Beautiful, very pretty sounding chord. What if I wanted to play the 9th or the 2nd? Well, the 2nd is in a couple of places. We can find our 2nd 2 frets above our 3rd, or we could play it 2 frets above our root, my mistake, 2 frets above our root, or we can play it 1 fret below our minor 3rd, right? So we could play it here. Quite the fingering task, but we could get something very pretty like this. Ooh, let's go again. Ooh, once more. Ah, that's difficult to play, but I could probably carry it off if I was a bit more fleet-fingered, but that would work. I guess in that situation, I could start binning other notes, like I could bin off the root and maybe not play that at all and get this. Assume the bass player's going to play that. That would work for me. Or I could take my 3rd and put it here. There's root, there's flat 7, there's 9th, there's 11. Pretty. It works, right? Works really, really well. So we've got some questions coming in about this. One from Mal Riley, and Chris Brown's in with an answer. Says, does A minor 11 need to have the 4 higher than the 1st, flat 3rd, 5th, and flat 7? I would argue no. Chris Brown is saying yes to make an 11, 4th up an octave. I don't think it needs to be higher than those. I think if you were close voicing, then it should be, because it might get a bit cluttery, but you don't have to. There's no rule with this. You can voice these any way you want. So for example, we could put the 4th. Let's find a place where the 4th is lower than one of the other notes. So for example, if I was playing off this A, I could play flat 7 here. Let's say, for example, I want to put the 4th in. I think I'm making a little grave for myself here. Let's do that again. Let's commit to putting the flat 7 on the highest string. There's flat 7. So I can put my flat 7 here. And I could then say, well, look, I'm going to put my 4 in here below the flat 7. There's my root. I'll put a 3rd in. Where can I find a cool 3rd? Here, maybe. And I'll maybe put another root note in there. In this instance, we're still getting a minor 11 chord, albeit one that is slightly out of tune. There's new strings on these guitars. that would still count as a minor 11, even though the 11 is below. So here's one from Citizen, says, what is the difference between 11 and a sus4? Difference between 11 and a sus4, we need to include another one here, is the presence of the other notes in the chord. So there are three options here. If we have a sus4, I'll go to these cameras here. Sus4 is when we have root, just the 4 and the 5th. So the third has been replaced with a sus4. In this case, the third has been turned into a 4. If we also have a third, if we have root, some kind of third, some kind of 5th, and then our 11, notice I didn't say 7, root, third, 5th, 11, then it becomes what we call an add 11. So sus chords have no third, add chords have a third but no 7, and then if we have the full quota of root, third, 5th, and 7, 5th sometimes optional, and also 11, that's when it becomes an 11. So that's the difference. Chris Brown's absolutely right. It says if you're playing with a bass player, every note is an octave above the ultimate root note. Sting said something to that effect, where he's gone, look, the chord is what I decide it is. If you guys are playing C, and I want to put an A underneath it, we're playing A minor 7. And I'm like, he's absolutely right. And if he wants to sing a B on the top, it's A minor 9 now. So yeah, bass players have ultimate authority with this. Great example is the progression from Easy Lover by Philip Bailey and Phil Collins. It's like, it's flat 6, flat 7, 1 the first time around, and then it's 4 minor, 5 minor, 1 the second time around. Darryl Queen is saying, I'll go as far as so you can get some really cool spread voicings by having the 11 lower in the chord voicing. Certainly can. You can do whatever you want with this stuff. Where you play these, the voicing side of it, is down to you, but we've got an ultimate thing we need to pick from this. So we've done chords. We also need to get the scales, and we'll get the scales in a second. But what we've picked up from this is the way we learn this stuff, and the way we learn to visualize this stuff is by understanding the physical relationship between root note and the intervals that we need to get the sound we're looking for, which requires two things. We need to know what intervals are in the chord and scale that we're going to play. Well, that's something that is a topic for another day. That's a music theory discussion rather than fretboard visualization, but these go hand in glove. So your music theory, take the time to learn it, right? But once we have our series of intervals, we then need to know how to locate them. We need to know where they are physically on the instrument. And that comes from experience and also from discovery. So when you're playing stuff, I want you to pay conscious attention to where is my nearest root note and what interval am I playing from this root note? Is it the raised 7? Is it the flat third? Is it the 9? Is it the raised third? From here, we can start to do scales, because scales are the same deal. The only difference is we don't have to play all the notes all at once. And in actual fact, chords and scales, as we discovered with our A minor 11 example and our minor pentatonic, which contained the same notes, chords and scales are the same thing. The only difference is, are they all on top of each other, or are we playing them one at a time? So essentially, what you might think of a chord as is a chord is several scale notes in a trench coat standing up pretending to be a chord, because that's what they are. Scales, chords, same deal. As far as matching scales to chords, well, there's a simple elimination process we can do here where we take a look at the notes that are in a given chord and we make sure that our scale contains those notes and no notes that will be offensive against those notes, and then we fill in the others to our heart's content. It's quite a simple way of looking at it, quite a reductionist way of looking at it, but scales and matching those to chords, that's another topic for another day. We're visualizing the fretboard today, not learning music theory, but even still. So let's take the example of learning a Dorian scale. So a Dorian scale is our minor pentatonic, but we attach two additional notes to it. The additional notes we need are second and raised 6. Now the places we find these are as follows. The second is 1 fret below our flat third, or 2 frets up from our root, either place. The way we find our flat 6 is the raised 6. The raised 6 is 2 frets above our 5th, or 1 fret below our flat 7. So let's go looking, right? Here's minor pentatonic. Let's go back over those notes very quickly. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. Cool. Let's find the 9s, or the seconds, that are in there. There's 1, there's flat 3. Well, we already established the second is 2 frets above a root note. Cool. Or 1 fret below a flat third. There's flat third, we're here. Cool, great. 4th, fifth. Well, 2 frets up from our fifth, we'll find the raised 6. Or we can find it 1 fret below our flat 7. There's flat 7 root. There's third. Well, a fret below that, we can get a second. There's fifth. 2 frets up from here, we can play our flat 6. A raised 6. Keep saying flat 6. Raised 6. Or we can take this flat 7, visualize it downwards from there. Root. You guessed it, 2 frets up. There's the second. There's our flat third. If we're on flat third, we can go a fret down and get the second. Piece of cake. So we've converted our minor pentatonic into a Dorian scale. But in reality, all we're doing is taking this root note, or this one, and hanging the appropriately reachable intervals that we need to make our scale or make our chord, hanging the formula from these notes. That's literally all there is to it. And it's not only that there's all there is to it, that's all there ever can be to it. There is no other way of playing the Dorian scale in this easily reachable position, which is why shapes are so popular. Because shapes are just a little shorthand. They're a crib sheet for the formula. Where do you find the notes in the formula? Well, you find them here. So you must memorize the shape. I don't think that's a very good way of doing things. I think a better way to do things is to understand the formula and figure out where to find them. Because it lets you do things like this, right? So we're up here. I'm playing this A note. And now I want to play the 9. Do I work out what shape I'm in? Well, actually, what cage position I'm in? Well, I'm in pentatonic box 3, and that relates to the D major shape, which means... Or do I go, here's A, 9's 2 frets up. Great. Now I need the 4th. Same fret up 1 string. 5th, up 2 frets next string. Flat 3rd, 3 frets up from the root. 9, or 2nd, fret below the flat 3rd. Flat 7, where's that? Well, that's 5th, so flat 7 is 3 frets up from that. Or it's 2 frets down from this root note. It lets you do things like that where you don't really play a shape. You are, because you can't not play the shape. The shape is just where the notes are, but you're not thinking about the shape. We're not thinking about, oh, this is the shape. We understand where my root note is. And I'm able to find the notes that I need instantly because I understand their physical position on the guitar and I understand the formula that I'm using to get there. We got some great questions, so we're going to move our attention to our questions. We'll answer as many of them as we can, starting with the ones I promised to answer, which I will. But first, I will say this really quickly. Mike Seedorf says, how does the 11th, 9th get its name or position in a scale or chord? It's just a fancy name. It's a Sunday name for the 4th or the 2nd in this case. So the 11th is the same as the 4th. The 9th is the same as the 2nd. You could argue that the 9th is 2nd only up an octave, but we don't have to play it up the octave. There's no rule that says we have to play it there, because we could be playing multiple octaves. We could play it all sorts of places. Basically, if you're a jazz guitarist, you call it the 9th. That's kind of it. You go, it's the fancy name, it's the hip name. You go, I'm playing the 9th, as opposed to playing the 2nd. And I am enough of a poser to go, yeah, I'm playing the 9th, bro. I'm playing the 11th, bro. Same thing, right? Same thing. It makes no difference. Citizen says, so nailing the intervals will be more beneficial than memorizing a shape or the notes. I think so. I think nailing the intervals will enable you to instantly calculate the shape, and the shape will just fall out of your fingers. It'll just happen, and you'll learn the shape by proxy. The shape will just exist because you'll know what notes go into it. In terms of playing the notes, this is really funny. I feel seen. Yeah, same, right? Same. We're all the same here, man. There's no shame here. Yeah, so that will absolutely it will absolutely be beneficial, yes. But nailing the notes, we need to know what the notes are. We need to know the names of the notes, because we must first understand which root note we're playing from, because that's the only note name we need to know at any given point. So the only note name we need to know is which is the root note, what's its name, and if we know the name of the root note, boom, intervals from there. That's the way it works. So more questions, right? We've got some really great questions here. Here is one from, we'll go with Mal Riley first. I promised Mal Riley. So Nick, Mal Riley's asking, Nick, are you changing modes in this improv? Absolutely. So what I'm doing here, the Joe Bonamassa improv, is largely some E. It's largely just like E riffy stuff. And over that, I'm going, cool, right, E minor pentatonic. And then I'm going, right, okay, well, what can I add to this? Well, Dorian's not going to offend me. Why do I know Dorian? Well, there's no Dorian notes or Aeolian notes. There's no 6 at all in any of the chords or any of the notes, because it's just notes. There's no chords really to speak of. So it's just some notes. It's mostly pentatonic, so I can throw Dorian in at my heart's content. But I'll probably keep it largely pentatonic because that's what the riff's doing. I don't want to get all clever over a bluesy riff. However, the next bit goes to A minor, technically A minor add 9, G adds, what is that? That's G6, 9, wow. G with an E, there's no 9, sorry, G6, my mistake, G6. This really spicy sounding F sharp Lydian dominant chord, the Alex Lifeson chord, and then F major 11 sharp 11, major 7 sharp 11 rather. Spicy chords. Now what I'm doing when I'm playing over these chords, because these chords don't all belong to a single key, I'm treating each one as an island, because there's no one key that will go over all of them. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the first two. They'll fit, so I can play A, Aeolian over those. I could play Dorian, but I feel like Aeolian's a good fit at this point. Maybe I'll play Dorian. Maybe I do play Dorian. When it gets to this, I happen to know that the intervals in that chord, I won't get into why, but I happen to know that the intervals in that chord are Lydian dominant. And I happen to know that the formula for Lydian dominant is 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, flat 7. And I know where to find those. And I know it's an F sharp. So there's an F sharp. And I know I can play third. I'll go to these cameras very quickly. Third, flat 7, second, sharp 4. Up here on my flat 7. There's my root, there's the 6. Oh, I beg your pardon, sorry. Not Lydian dominant, my mistake. I'm playing something entirely different over that. I'm actually playing, what am I playing? So that could be mixed Lydian. Sorry, I do apologise, getting ahead of myself there. It could be mixed Lydian, but I also know because there's no 6 in there, I can play mixed Lydian flat 6. I knew that didn't make sense. So I can play root, flat 7, 9, flat, raised third, 4th, 5th, flat 6. And that's where I'm getting that sound from. And over this, I'm going to F Lydian, because I know those notes sum out to F Lydian. How do I know them? Well, that's just a case of being experienced with finding the notes in the chord and going, aha, those are the intervals, I know what to match to those. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Here's a cool one from Roy Callon. I promised I would answer this, so I will answer this. Can you please answer the question from last week about the notes of the harmonics not on the 12th fret? Certainly can. So these notes of our harmonics and how to find them follow what you might call the harmonic series. And it's all based upon how we divide the string. So the 12th fret note is the same as our root note because it's exactly halfway between the nut and the bridge. So the bridge is here, the nut is here, hopefully you can see that. Halfway is the 12th fret. It doesn't look like it's halfway because of the way the fretboard is aligned, but if you look closely, that's halfway. So if we divide the string in half, we get the same note. If we divide the string in thirds by playing the 7th fret, or by playing up here on the 19th fret, which is dividing the string evenly into its third, a third of the length, Now the string has, this is double the string in vibration in speed. This is tripled it in speed. So this gives us the fifth. So the 7th fret note is always going to be the 5th of whatever string we're on. So there's G, there's a D note. When we get to quarters, we've quadrupled in speed. So quarter would be the equivalent of half of a half. So the 5th fret. 5th fret, same note. So root, root, 5th, root again. When we divide the string by 5, which is here just past the 4th fret, it's the major third. So in this case, it would be B. Here we're on another 5th, which is half of a third. It's divided as a 6th. So our third is here. Half of that third is here, just this side of the 3rd fret, 3.2. That's a 5th. When we go here to our next one, which I may need some distortion to pop out. Let's see. That guy there, difficult to get out, just this side of the 3rd fret. That's going to be a flat 7, because that's what happens when we divide the string in 7. Here we divide the string into 8, so we get the octave again. Then it's the 9. So that's how we find the notes. So it's root, 5th, which is D, root again, which is G, 3rd, which is B, 5th again, which is D. There's a flat 7 in there, which is F. There's a G in there somewhere, there's a root note. There's a 9, which is A. And then somewhere up here there's another 3rd, and then eventually a sharp 11. And on it goes. It's the harmonic series, basically. That's the way you find them. So that was a long-winded way of saying that's how you figure it out, but that's how you figure it out. So here's another great question from Peter Harper. Peter Harper is saying, so if you're staying on the same string, would this still apply? So you could go root, flat 3rd, then 2 steps up would be 4th. Yes, that's absolutely true. So it applies regardless of the regardless of the string you're on, let's say. So the 4th will always be 2 frets above the flat 3rd, which I think is what you're saying here. So if we play root here, go to these cameras, root, flat 3rd, 2 frets up will always be the 4th. So we could play root 4th if we wanted to play some Steve Vai licks. So on and so on. We could do that, that would work. 5th would be here, so we could play a root, flat 3rd, 5th, root, major 3rd, 5th, root, 4th, 5th. For some tapping fun, major 3rd, flat 3rd, 9, and so on and so forth. So yes, that absolutely does apply. Absolutely does apply. So yeah, that's a lot of questions, man. I feel like we've probably done as much as we're going to get through, I think. Certainly. Oh, here's one from Noel, Christian, Tenard. I promised I was going to do this one as well. So how do you use a dominant 7? Well, the dominant 7 is what you get when you play a chord or a scale that contains a root, a major 3rd, raised 3rd, a 5th, and a flat 7. So it's raised 3rd, flat 7. A couple of places you can find this. You can find it in you can find it naturally occurring on chord 5 of a major scale. You can find it naturally occurring on chord 4 in a Dorian tonality. You can find it as chord 1 in a mixed Lydian sort of setup if you're playing funk. But this is probably not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is probably the idea of using secondary dominants or using functional dominants. Now, a secondary dominant, we've got a minute to do this. I think we can do it. A secondary dominant is what happens when we take any chord that you like, any chord in any key, and just turn it into a dominant. And you can just do it. You don't need to worry about it. Just do it. So, for example, if we're playing Forget You by CeeLo Green with a clean sound, C major. Normally we'd have C, D minor, F, and then C. C. If we take D and we turn it into a D7, haha, we played a secondary dominant chord. C, D7, F, back in key, C. We can turn any chord we like into a dominant chord. A great example of this is Dock of a Bay. So Dock of a Bay is entirely secondary dominant chords. It's just all secondary dominant. Now I'm playing these as major because that's what they're played on the record, but they're working as secondary dominants because a major chord has a secondary dominant within it. Now, why do we call them secondary dominants? Well, we call them secondary dominants to differentiate them from what we would call functional dominants, which is something I'll get onto in a second. But basically, a secondary dominant, if we turn any old chord into a dominant chord, it's a secondary dominant. Any one you like. Anyone will do the trick. Now, if that dominant chord is resolving to a note that is a fourth away, i.e. that chord is functioning as a 5 going to another chord, then we would call it a functional dominant, and we would treat it differently. Functional dominants can be altered. Secondary dominants probably shouldn't be. And we can also use that in our scale choices. Generally speaking, a secondary dominant, we would play Lydian dominant over. Or we could play over we could play mixed Lydian if you wanted to. You could play major pentatonic. You can just find whatever the closest note you need to move is to get there. Or over a functional dominant chord. Let's say, for example, we had a song in the key of A, and then we went A, C sharp. Ooh, that's an interesting one. C sharp dominant. If that chord was to go to F sharp, well, there we can treat this as a functional dominant chord. And over functional dominant chords, we can play superlocrian. We can play diminished arpeggios, up a semitone rather. We could play Phrygian dominant. We can play half all diminished. You can play half all diminished, apparently I can't. The reason being is that chord by its very nature, resolving to a 1 chord, is able to withstand tension in a way that a secondary dominant which doesn't resolve cannot. Hopefully that was useful. That was very crash course. And we'll maybe talk about dominant chords in more detail in the future stream. But for the time being, folks, I'm going to have to bid you adieu. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. We are here on the 23rd, and we are also here in between Christmas and New Year. So streams will be going on the Mondays through the holidays. If you're bored and full of cheese and full of turkey, come hang out with us. We're going to play some guitar. It's going to be a lot of fun. Don't forget, you can go get your free lesson from licklibrary.com down below. If you haven't done so already, consider signing up for a membership. There's so much great stuff in there, right? Let this lesson that we've done today and the lesson down below be a taster of what is inside. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much, folks. My name's Nick Jennison for Lick Library and Guitar Interactive Magazine. Go to licklibrary.com for lessons. Go to guitarinteractivemagazine.com for news, reviews, interviews, all that good stuff. Basically, anything that's not a lesson but is guitar related, go to GI. Anything that is lesson related, go to Lick Library. You know where to find stuff. Whatever channel you happen to be watching on, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so we can let you know when we're about to go live, and share this with your guitar playing friends. And don't forget to hit like on the way out. I will see you guys next time. Let's see if the amp's going to shout at me. No, let's play the backing track. We're going to do the Joe Bonamassa one again. See if you can spot that change to F sharp mixed Lydian flat 6. Here we go.